So today we are going to discuss developing our students' reading skills. So we are going to have once again joining us author James Suntres, who I'm sure most of you are familiar with. So James, why don't you, if you're ready, why don't you come join us and I can give you the floor. There he is.
Here I am. I'm here. Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. Well, I see your name, and I know some of you. So, anyway, hope the
Okay,
school is well for you.
James, the floor is yours. Whatever you need, I'm here. So why don't we begin?
Okay. Um. So, hi, everyone. We're going to talk about reading on All American. Of course, the onus is preparing students for the Michigan ECPE, but as we said with writing, I mean, reading is reading, right? There's no such thing as ECPE reading or Cambridge reading or MSU reading. Reading is reading, and the types of activities that students have are more or less the same. So basically, you can replace Michigan ECP with any exam because we're talking about reading at a C2 level. And this is the approach that we've taken with All American. So without further ado, just let me first of all remind you what the reading component on the Michigan proficiency is. We have 3 passages, about 350, 400 words each. It's a type of things that someone would feel the need to read because of their academic needs, personal, professional needs. And as I said, it's a reflection of C2 reading on the Common European Framework. So if you just read the Common European Framework, C2 reading, you'll get an understanding. And for what it's worth, the descriptors on the reading, on the writing, on the speaking for the Common European Framework are used almost verbatim by um, um, the University of Michigan and basically all exam groups because so much is based on the Common European Framework. So I strongly recommend you have a copy on your desktop, just refer to it. Not the type of thing you'd read unless you have insomnia, but anyways, I digress. There's no need for specialists. You don't have to be an expert, right, in the field. If it is about some sort of development, some sort of technological development, the passages are written with the writer is taking into account that he's writing to somebody who doesn't know about this, so this person is trying to convey new information. Of course, world knowledge is important. On the one hand, there's no specialist knowledge required, but on the other hand, it I can't really think of a situation where background knowledge isn't an asset when we read anything. More about that in a sec about generally reading. We have a brief statement at the beginning of each passage. A very brief statement. This passage is about horses, or this passage is about uh, a new medication, so to speak, something like that. And the purpose of this is to activate some amount of background knowledge to signal to students the general subject area of the text. It provides a very, very basic uh, context for the student. So place the students in some sort of contextual framework, and this gives the students more of a purpose to read. because if I don't, just as we mentioned last week about having a purpose to write, if you don't have a purpose to write, you're not going to write. The same thing applies for reading. You have to have a purpose to read, so you know what you're focusing on, you know what keywords to pinpoint, that sort of thing. And the questions are sequenced in accordance with the information in the text. And interestingly, right before today's seminar, I was speaking with my goddaughter and niece, very, very wonderful person. And we're talking about, she says, "Oh, so you have a seminar. So what's your seminar going to be about?" And I told her, and she said that for reading, she did well on the reading. And what she did was she very briefly looked at the questions before reading the text, because the questions are sequenced in accordance with the information in the text. So they even give a better understanding of context. So little bit of information that came from a student who found this helpful. I wouldn't recommend that. Like in the way the University of Michigan used to be, the reading, like the questions were not in the sequence of the text, but now they are. So I guess that's something that you could safely do. As far as the question types, we have three, and then, by the way, these are the same question types that are encountered in parts 2 and 3 of the listening. And basically, they're the question types that you encounter in any comprehension activity where students have to process extensive discourse, whether it's spoken or written discourse. Overall things, understanding the whole passage type thing. Why has a writer written this? What is the main onus of this passage? That usually takes place. That is usually either the first or the last question. As far as this next item is concerned, this is more specific things, specific idea. It's here where questions refer to pronominal forms. What does it in the second sentence in paragraph 2 refer to, type thing. Lexical items. So quite often they have, how could you best replace such and such a word? And then most of the questions are actually of this sort, making inferences, understanding information in the text which might not be so explicit. And this is like, what is being suggested here? Why would, what is this implying? What can we infer from this statement? Or, again, small digression, listening. What does a speaker mean when he or she says this? Okay, so there is there's a tremendous amount of overlap here. Interestingly, in preparing for one section of the exam, we're also preparing for another. And also, when we talk about processing language, we process language in very much the same way, especially when we're dealing with discourse. So whether we're listening to something or reading something, as I said, our brains work in very much the same way. Hence, the same types of questions that you have in one section of the exam, you have in another, because, well, basically that's a reflection of how our brains work with language. So I'd like to now turn to our unit that I'm working with. Do you have a copy of the book? Do any of you have a copy of the book with you? Can I see some answers here? Yes, no, maybe, I've ordered it. No, I do. Oh, Hamilton House Publishers. That's funny. Well, that's been not good. Yeah, well, get a copy. It's a really great. Not yet. Oh, that's very good. No. Well, get a. It's a really fantastic book. I mean, I really enjoyed working on it with my co-author Sarah, and we had a really great editorial team. And it's a really well constructed book. I'm very very proud of it. I'm very very proud to be associated with it. So I'm looking at uh, uh, we're at Unit 4 for those of you that have the book. On page 43, that's a unit I've chosen, something from the middle of the book. So we begin with each unit begins with a unit opener. It's a brief statement offering some sort of, a series of talking points, uh, uh, you could say. In this unit opener, we have many movies that are based on popular superheroes like Superman or Spider-Man. Some movie critics argue that present-day action and adventure movies have little to offer in artistic qualities, etc., etc. Basically, it's the question is, should movies make a statement, or are they just entertainment? What do you think? And it just gets students talking about movies and the role of movies and how they see movies, and it basically opens them up, makes them more responsive to what is going to follow. Also, in responding to this point of view, they're activating a lot of the vocabulary and the language that they'll be needing throughout the unit. So it's a nice way to get them to start drawing from their brains as far as the resources that they have in order to use these resources to acquire the new language that they'll be encountering in the unit. Then we begin the we follow with two theme-based vocabulary activities. We are, of course, exposing students. It's pre-teaching these words, phrases, expressions that students are going to be meeting in the passages and later on in the unit. Very, very importantly, it's not just one type of task type. So here we have, for example, multiple choice activity and activity 1, and a selection activity and activity 2. We have different activities. There's a wide variety of task types throughout the book, and this is what keeps it interesting, of course. And very, very importantly, the vocabulary on these activities is definitely C2 level. It's very, very challenging. It's C2 level. So what we would do, we would obviously write the passages first. Then we'd feed the passages into a profiler. And if there aren't, if the passage was too easy, then of course we would rewrite it and we would develop it so it's a reflection of the C2 level. Then once the passage was completed, then we would draw the lexis from this passage that was definitely C2 level. So we made every effort to make sure that this vocabulary is challenging, and trust me, it is. It is definitely C2 level, which is, of course, what we want. So here we have the opening. As I said, we have our point of view. I don't know what type of screen. Some of you might be looking at this on your phones. So this means this is pretty tiny. But you recognize Darth Vader here in the title, pop culture. So very, very current, actually. I mean, everybody knows Darth Vader. And in fact, one of the questions is, if you look at the it's one of the questions I found very, very interesting here, that according to sales of merchandise, actually it's the first question, based on the sale of merchandise such as toys, clothing, and other items, who is the most popular Star Wars character? And who do you think the most popular Star Wars character is? Students learn this in All American. Who do you think it is? I ask you. If you don't have the book, don't. If you have the book in front of you, the title of the book is All American. The title of the book is All American. So who is the most popular Star Wars character? It is, yes, yes. But see, it's Darth Vader, and this is understood through the sale of merchandise, and this is mentioned in All American. I'm sure a lot of people get surprised with that. They'll think it's Han Solo or whatever. But anyway, this is all very bona fide, interesting information, and I found it really interesting. Students will get a kick out of it. The Joker is one of Batman's worst villains. That's the word that we want to teach. The answer choice, of course, is evildoer. Which actor played Joker in the movie, which explains why he is so evil? And of course, it's Joaquin Phoenix in the most recent movie. So we refer to something which is really current, and it's something that students can really, really relate to. And that is the spirit of all of the questions. And if students want, they can do web searches to say, hey, is this really true? And they'll end up getting more vocabulary and info and context, hopefully, so that the reading passages even become more current and, very importantly, relevant. And this is one of the key words here, that in developing this material, we wanted to make it as relevant as possible for our students, because if the students relate to it, if they see the relevance in it, then they'll read it more willingly, and they'll gain more information, they'll gain more language, and they'll learn, of course. Following our lead-in and our vocabulary pre-teaching, we have the first passage. And before students do the actual reading, though, we have a very brief video. The video is just a few minutes long with some sort of narration. Consider it a mini documentary, which is thematically related to what students are about to read. And the first is about the demand for original TV shows, and when is a movie a box office hit? And again, the purpose of this is to increase context, increase the relevance, get students to activate even more background knowledge. So when they actually do the reading, they know why they're reading, what to focus on, and it's much more beneficial for them. And the first passage is, I won't tire you and I won't read through it. It's, what is a box office success? Okay, why is it that some movies are successful? What are the ingredients of a successful movie? And here we talk about movie franchises, and why is it that movie franchises are successful, but why is it that some other movies fail, although they are part of a franchise? So we mentioned things like the Marvel series and the Disney series, and why people go to watch these movies. And then our reference to a movie that wasn't really so successful, despite being part of a very lucrative franchise. And that is, of course, Warcraft, which the movie came out based on the very popular game World of Warcraft. The questions, as I said, they follow the sequence of the text exactly as is on the examination. If you notice the questions on this particular passage, so what is the main purpose of the passage? According to the passage, why do moviegoers prefer franchise movies? in the 6-sentence paragraph 1, which word could best replace lucrative? What is true about hedge funds? What can be inferred about most moviegoers? Why does the author mention Warcraft? I think because the questions are sequenced in according to the text, perhaps one good pre-reading activity would be, why not go over the questions? Look over the 4 answer choices. Try and guess which the correct answer choice is without looking at the text. And then reading the text to confirm. Like I said, because the questions are sequenced in accordance with the information, is an added activity that you can do with your students. And it's actually, might even, if they have the time, an effective exam taking strategy. It depends on how quickly your students can read and process information, obviously. I wouldn't recommend this, though, on examinations where the questions are not sequenced in accordance with the information. Nor if I'm not such a quick reader, might not be a good idea to look over the questions and then the text. Basically, the rule of thumb is read the text first. Like, read the opening statement, read the text first, and then go over the questions. But as a classroom activity, it's something that you can do. Notice that we have a very good balance of questions, global understanding, specific points, a couple of inference type questions. Actually, questions 4, 5, and 2, 4, 5, and 6. All of them except for 2 questions. Questions 1 and 3 are inference type questions, which is basically what it is on the exam. There are 6 questions. Usually, one of them global understanding, one of them discrete point, and the remaining 4 are inference type questions. Of course, the important quality of inference type questions is that students have to combine information, like different pieces of information, in order to choose the correct answer choice, which is why they're so prominent in the reading comprehension. Then going on, we have our next passage, which is here. And this passage, the focus is on reality television, the fact that it is popular, why it's popular, but also, some other behind the scenes facts about reality TV that students might not be aware of. And again, we have our questions. What is the main purpose of the passage? Very commonly, the first comprehension question is that. What is the main purpose of the passage? Then we have questions 8, 9, and 10, which are, actually in this particular reading, we have again 4 questions which are inference type questions, and then the 2 questions which are something a little more specific, questions 7 and 11. As far as the top corner of the exam strategy, we have in the first 5 units different exam strategies, and these exam strategies are pretty comprehensive. They cover very much all the types of questions that students are likely to encounter, but it's a lot more than that. So we begin with, approaching the passage, why this opening statement is so important, why it's important to read the passage carefully first. Then we talk about the different question types, and we analyze those with examples. The importance of identifying important words, expressions, which quite often are referred to, are the focal point of the questions. Reading the four answer choices very closely before attempting to answer, obviously. Quite often, students, mistake. They just choose the first answer that they think is correct without reading all four answer choices, because on the exam, typically the answer choices all have words and ideas from the text, but in the wrong type of context. And of course, this very important focus on discourse, on linking words, pronominal forms, and we very much focus on this, helping students develop an ability to follow how ideas flow and interrelate with one another, because this is how they develop an understanding of what context is. And if I have a better understanding of context, then it's easier for me to be able to figure out, to understand, to explain to myself what words that I don't know. Leslie likes R2D2. Yes, R2D2 is cute. So our goal is, of course, yes, students have to pass the exam, but they have to become good with the language in order to accomplish this, right? So this is actually a lot more than preparing for an exam, because we have an extensive array of topics. So students will increase their understanding of the world. They will become, they'll know more stuff, and that's really, really important. One of the, and hence my title. I remember, back in the day, I was going to University of Michigan all the time, and we were always talking about that. And one of the people that was responsible back then for the exam said to me that, what we want students to realize that they can read and learn new things. And this is what we're trying to see, that can somebody read a passage and learn something new that they didn't know before? And this has always been one of their principles in the reading and any type of extensive discourse type activity. I want to stress, this is a great time to be involved in teaching and in test preparation, because I think I've said this before. We have the three. If I had we have a triangle here. That's why we had a board, but we have a triangle, and at the top of the triangle, we have teaching. For us, if we were testers, the top of the triangle would be testing, but the top of the triangle is teaching. And why are we teaching our students? Well, we're teaching our students because we want them to be able to use and function with the language, right? Well, in a perfect world, that's what it should be. But of course, we're teaching our students, or they're sitting in our classroom because they have to pass a test. And I was teaching when probably some of you probably weren't even born yet, or you're like little kids. But back in the 80s, I remember we used to do, there used to be this one activity on the Michigan exam, for example, where there was an underlined word, and students had to choose a synonym to that underlined word. I don't know if any of you remember, this was like half a century ago. It was really weird, because often, like the underlined word, like all four answer choices were possible depending on the context. So that's an example of an exam activity which has completely divorced from language use. But that's no longer the case. Now, by and large, examinations are a reflection of how people use the language. So when we're teaching to the test, we're also teaching students how to use language. And also, um, of course, this has been the case for the last 15 or 20 years, but more so now. You can use exam activities to teach, or not to teach. You can't teach reading with the Michigan reading comprehension, because, for one thing, students are already at an advanced level. They already know how to read, right? I mean, but you can use it to consolidate their reading skills. You can use the exam to make them better readers. You can teach them better. You can teach them how to read an expository passage. Small digression here. Last time we were talking about writing and how reading more. If you read, you'll become a better writer. But here it's the flip side. By understanding how these passages work, they can transpose this understanding to their writing. And another very important point is the vocabulary items, the grammatical structures that students encounter in the reading are later on further developed in the grammar section, the vocabulary subsection. They're encountered again in the listening, the extensive listening. And then once students go to the writing section, they can refer back to the reading section for ideas, for lexis, they can use it as a resource to enhance their writing. So there's a lot of overlap and recycling throughout each unit, as you would expect in a course book, in a well-constructed course book. And this is a really well-constructed course book. So Vasilis, from your experience, has language reading for the ECP exam changed over the last 30 years? If yes, to what? Well, we will have a Q&A shortly, Bill. So hang on to that question. Very important question, very interesting question. We will answer it at our Q&A. So hang on to it, Vasilis. Don't just cut it and save it and paste it when we do our Q&A. So there you have it. One thing, though, I want to say about reading. A small digression here, I guess. Again, it's too bad I don't have a board, but are you familiar with PISA? With let me type it here. If you have your chat here, it's the Project for International Student Assessment. PISA. Okay. Are you familiar with PISA? Okay, Vasilis, yes. Well, PISA, it's an ongoing endeavor. It started back in, I think, 2000. It's the quality of students, correct, quality of 15-year-olds. And it involves scores of countries that belong to the OECD. And Greece is a member, and Greece always participates. Great, good. We have the survey here, so I strongly recommend you visit it. Unfortunately, our 15-year-olds do not score so high. Of course, they also look at scientific literacy and numeracy. That's not our concern. When it comes to reading, though, unfortunately, our 15-year-olds do not fare well, and this is in their own language. Most Greek teens are not good when it comes to extensive reading. It's a sad reflection on the education system here. Of course, it's interesting that kids that go to private schools don't have this. That's a different issue. Perhaps a bit of controversy there, but the facts speak for themselves. But as far as the state school system, our 15-year-olds are not very good readers in their own language. The typical age of a proficiency student is 15. So it's in teaching them, in helping them develop these skills to deal with expository prose. A lot of these kids, they don't apply these things. They don't know these skills even in their own language. So so basically we are helping them with their overall language, whether it's Greek or English, because reading is reading, whether you're reading in Greek, whether you're reading in English, it's the same. Our For what it's worth, I've done a lot of reading in neurolinguistics and that. Check out Steven Pinker's book, The Language Instinct. And Here, Steven. And actually, I heard recently on like a few like last year, about a year and a half ago, heard Steven Pinker, talking about this book on YouTube, and basically says that it's far from dated, and there's very little he would add because he did a lot of research, a lot of thinking. And our brain, it doesn't matter whether it's French, English, Chinese, whatever. If we know these languages, our brain processes language in the same way. So one very important suggestion I give to my students is read as much as you can. Well, I don't like reading English books at times. Well, then read books in Greek. Just read. Get your mind used to processing the written word, understanding the written word, and not from a computer screen either, but reading a book, because again, a small digression here. More and more research is showing that when you read things from a screen, or you do anything from a screen, you're distracted. Like even in this talk that we're having, think of it. I'm looking at myself. I have myself on a small monitor. I have like on a small screen, and another small screen I have the presentation. Another small screen I have the chat. I mean, and if you're looking at the same thing, what do you focus on first? And there is a distraction here for all of us. And for reading, that's it's bad because you don't retain the information that you're reading. So small digression here. Please forgive me, but I think it's very, very relevant. So here we have a book, All American. If you haven't seen the cover, really flashy cover. Hamilton House gets my prize for the most original and best designed covers for books. And not only, the inside of the book is very, very well designed. A nice balance of visuals, a nice soft pastel colors that don't distract students. I don't like books that are too garish. This is far from garish. Very, very well designed book that students will enjoy working with. As I said, reflects the revised ECP, younger test takers. There's a great intertextuality, means there's a great deal of interrelationship between the different components in the book. It does reflect, the ECC, the way, this is on the revised ECP, the ECC and the ECP are very much in tandem. Both the ECC and the ECP have a lot of guidance for students in the writing. It's basically guided writing. And big distraction. Just sort of, oh, that's so funny. That's one of the advantages of this. So this period is just order the language instinct. Yeah, it's a really fantastic book. In fact, I have it right. Well, I won't get up. I have it right here, right behind my bookcase. I have it. It's like it's a fantastic book. Yeah, you will not regret. You will not regret it. Anyway, so basically, this overview of the revised ECP. This is something we talked about already. I strongly recommend you go to the CAMLA website. They have a really nice chart there where they have old ECC, new ECC, old ECP, new ECP, so you can really see the difference. The most important difference, though, of all is here, the top one, It caters to younger test takers because, as I said, our test takers are typically 15, 16 years of age now, even younger, sadly. But this doesn't mean the exam is in any way easier. It's still a reflection of the C2 level. As far as the student's book is concerned, we have our 10 units. Each unit is thematic entity, and although we call it All American and it's geared towards the Michigan ECP, it's appropriate for any and all examination at the C1, C2 level. I'm sorry. It's the book itself starts around C1, but by the end of the book, it's completely C2 level. A great deal of support from for students, for teachers, with our exam strategies, the language bank and the writing. Tremendous amount of support, and a lot of exam-related practice, which is at the level of the examination. We made every effort to do this. There's a lot of back and forth and piloting and work put into this to make sure that it is a reflection of the exam. Our page opener, which I talked about, our stimulating topics, vocabulary section. It has all the components that you would expect in a course book, but as I said, very importantly, a tremendous amount of relevance. It's very, very, very current. Grammar, we work with grammar at discourse level and sentence level. With grammar, I want to stress this. It's just not just structure. We touch on grammar in a very meaningful way, because that's how it's tested on the examination. And as far as the closed passages are concerned, again, the vocabulary has already been encountered, similar themes. So one section of the book prepares for the next, etc., as it builds. Our students' book, the writing section, we talked about writing last week. I won't tire you with that, but again, very, very comprehensive. A balance of focusing on the product, the processes involved in producing the type of writing students are going to be expected to produce, and of course, practice. A lot of activities on the visual prompts, how to deal with the visual prompts, and how to incorporate the information in the prompts in their writing. And of course, our exam practice every 2 units. The book has, of course, our students' book, our workbook, our test book, companion, students' eat book, online platform. There's just so much to help the busy teacher. And of course, seminars like this to give you even further support. So the teacher, of course, gets also the teacher's book and the teacher's edition of the student's book, audio material, interactive whiteboard software, the works. I mean, everything that you need to do your job. The course will be available for the forthcoming academic year. It's, as I said, as is the case with ECP, it does reflect the adolescent learner without, of course, neglecting the older learner. I mean, the Michigan proficiency and generally the C2 level is such that you have to have some level of maturity to function at a C2 level. And yes, you can say, well, yeah, we're gearing it towards younger learners, but you can only, what expression can I say? Lower the age bar so low, put the age bar only low enough to a certain point, but there's a point below which it cannot go, because by virtue of by the C2 level is challenging. no matter how you look at it. And here we have our practice test book, which is revised, and we'll have more practice test material coming out to reflect the changes in the ECPE. And now, Vasilis, you can ask that question.
Okay, thank you, James. Thank you, everybody. So yes, now we'll begin the question and answer portion of today's session. So let me go ahead and get that started right here. Okay. Oh, so Vasily, you jumped the gun, so we didn't get your question on the Q&A mode, but I think we can read that, James, right?
Yes. So, Vasilis, you asked something about the reading on the ECP. Has it changed or something?
Well, here Vasilis has said reading and close are directly related.
Oh, yes. From your experience, has the language reading for the ECP exam changed over the last 30 years? If yes, to what? Last 3 years, actually, yes, Vasilis, it has changed in the sense that 25, 30 years ago, the exams were a little more academic. The reading passages were a little more academic, very, very reminiscent of university, high school textbook type passages. Now, the types of passages they have the, how can I say, the style that you'd encounter in a popular magazine, even. So yes, the style has changed somewhat. It is, how can I say, less erudite, if you will. So what's this? Reading and close are directly linked. Should closed passage be treated as reading text? First of all, looking at it. Actually, Vasilis, the closed passage is a reading comprehension activity. And there's a good seminar right there, the closed passage, because that's one of the most misunderstood parts of the exam. The closed passage is reading comprehension. You have to understand the text. And you know what? Maybe our next seminar is going to be on the closed passage, and I will explain why. Because very case in point on the closed passage in the Michigan, the first sentence or two never has a blank. And there's a reason for this, because it's very important, because in the opening 2 sentences or 3 sentences, that's where the writer's intentions are established. That's where students it's signaled to the students what this passage is about and what they're going to be focusing on. So if they don't know that, they don't know why they're reading, what there is they're focusing on, then they won't be able to fill in choose the correct answer choice. The correct answer choice is very much dependent on understanding the text as a whole. And this is, I said, an entire seminar topic in and of itself.
I would also like to say to us, to the viewers that are joining us on Facebook, on our live stream, you can ask questions there, and I will transfer the questions to everybody here and to James. So Facebook, world of Facebook, if you have any questions, go ahead and just type them in the
yeah, for what it's worth, I go onto the Facebook page myself, and if I see a question, then I answer it myself too on Facebook. I respond on Facebook. So
incredible service, James. We really appreciate that. Guys, we have time for a few more questions.
Canada is over. Yes. I was in Canada. Yeah, I was in Canada for 5 years. For those of you who are like wondering where I disappeared to, I went to Canada for 5 years, but I am back. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, minus the glasses.
Any other questions or comments? It can be about All American. It can be about anything in general. About teaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
We are here for you, everybody. Don't be shy. Thank you, Katarina. You can thank our lovely authors, James and Sarah. And I want to remind that for those of you that said no, that you don't have the book, please get in touch with us. Give us a call or talk to your rep, and we'll be happy to get you an inspection copy. Oh, it's a spicy question.
That's for you, Terry.
Well, actually, there is no right or wrong answer. It depends on the context, on the student or students, the level, what their aim is. So, what I can safely say is both of them are fantastic series. Fantastic series. American Download is a couple years older. All Americans brand new. So if you had students that want more up to date topics like the last year, then you would go with All American. If you're more just focused on developing, exam preparedness and strategies, either or.
Or both. Do one, do American Download, and then do All American.
It's true. Let me field this question. Are all components out yet? There's a balance here because when you have something that's brand new, you have brand new content and it's very exciting for the students. However, at the moment, I'm happy to say that, and I mentioned this last week, that the companion is coming out very soon. We have just released the first unit of the companion. So if you are using All American right now, we have the first unit for you in PDF format. Just get in touch with us or your dedicated rep, and we'll be happy to get that to you. The component, though, we are rushing to get it out as soon as possible in the print form. The audio for the students' book is ready. The audio for the workbook should be posted on our website next week, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty much in the finalized stages. And so then the last components, I guess the test book and IWB are going to be following shortly for October, definitely. Any other questions?
Any piece of advice for any teacher just starting out to teach C1, C2 level? Yes. Read a lot, Vasiliki. The thing is this. I was speaking with a language school owner a couple of days ago, and he was telling me how a couple of his teachers refused to teach above a certain level. And he asked them why. He said, "Well, because what if our students ask? We're talking about they go up to like a B1 level. They won't even go as far as B2 because they think what if students ask me something you don't understand?" And that's that's very, very fair. I mean, you should know your limits, I suppose. But having said that, I think that I've seen a lot of teachers teach, C1, C2 level, and problems arise when my knowledge of the grammar that I'm teaching is the level of the grammar in that book. You should know more than what is in the book to be able to understand and explain things better. And for this, I strongly, strongly recommend. Well, here, in fact, just wait, a small digression here. This book I have right here. This book, the grammar book. The grammar book. Just type it in, the grammar book. All teachers should get a copy of this book, the grammar book. Celsi Murcia and Diana Larson Freeman. Diana Larson Freeman, by the way, about 15 years ago, she was the director of the English Language Institute at the University of Michigan. And, just get a better understanding of how language functions, and you'll be able to handle any type of problem that will arise in the classroom. So yeah, just know more than what's in the book.
Great. It's great advice, James, definitely. And guys, we have now run out of time, but there's one question here. Anna on Facebook is following us and asks, is the teacher's book ready yet? And I just want to answer that because I forgot to mention it in my last response. The teacher's book is not ready yet, but that is again coming out very, very, very soon. So there are no more questions. We're out of time. James, thank you once again for joining us. And everybody at home or on the go, wherever you've joined us from, thank you again for watching one of our webinars and participating. And we will see you we'll see you the next one. Thanks, James, and thanks everyone. Have a good one.
I salute you. Take care.
Bye-bye.